Really.
Welcome to the show, everyone. This is the Voices of Healing podcast. I'm your host, Tina Clark, and I am a shamanic Reiki master teacher. And today I have two wonderful guests, Jennifer Poland and Darryl Gurney. They are from Canada, and Jennifer is going to share her story of how she healed herself from cancer. And we're just going to see where the conversation takes us. So welcome to the show, Jennifer and Darryl.
Lovely to be here.
Thank you, Tina. Yes. Yeah. So you want me to just jump in?
Sure. Tell us a little bit more about yourselves and then into your story.
Okay. Why don't you go first?
Yeah. Well, we're both sort of metaphysical healers.
Mm-hmm.
We been together in relationship almost 5 years now, and we both had our own individual practices. And but then about, I guess, 2 years ago now, Spirit kind of encouraged us to work together. And so now we see clients on Zoom or these kinds of platforms, and we work together. But the sessions got a lot deeper because we were able to use Jennifer's very strong psychic skills and my kind of energy psychology background. And then with those two things, we were able to reach deep into people's subconscious and make a big shift and really help them on their healing journeys. So that's our day job.
Nice. And who's the Reiki and IET master?
That would be me. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So my background, do you want to talk more about your background? Or you want me to jump in?
Well, yeah, I mean, my background is, I taught a few different processes and belief change and heart-based healing. I created my own process called shadow energetics, and I taught that. I taught one for sexual healing because I found that there a lot of people were dealing with a lot of sexual distortions and trauma. And so we, if you were wanting to get to your Kundalini and you wanted to get to connecting sexuality to spirituality, then you need to do a lot of healing first on some of this trauma. So I developed a bunch of processes that I taught for years. But as I say, I was, in my 30s, I was very much a workshop junkie, and I just learned as much as I could. And then it was basically taking that back to my clinical practice and using the new skills with clients. And then it became an amalgamation essentially of all the different things I learned, plus what came through Spirit. But I use muscle testing as my access point to the, source, if you will, and that's where I would get my information, and it's very an eclectic practice. And so combined with Jennifer's healing skills and clairvoyance, we sort of, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, as they say, and we were able to really make a even deeper change in people's lives.
Yeah. So for me, my journey, I was a really intuitive, open, kind of aware. I had, appearances from luminaries even when I was young. And so, but that had kind of closed down in my teenage years. I went through the awkwardness of having those gifts and not really understanding them. But when I was 28, I had two young children. I think they were around ages 2 and 3. And I was struggling through being a parent because I was parenting from my masculine. I had been a female that I had shut down a lot of my feminine for various reasons, some of them sexual trauma and other things, and really pursued more of my masculine side. I was looking for achievement oriented success and really going for it, played a lot of sports. And so I'm trying to parent my young ones, but I realized that I hadn't connected to them on my feminine side. And so this massive awakening and led to my soul searching. And so that's when the voice came through. That's when the channeling really, really became very, very strong. And I learned at home, I wasn't able to go anywhere. I couldn't, trek to those sacred sites. I've been able to get to them now as, as I got older. But when I was a mom, I was at home. So the study was really guided through motherhood, and the mirrors that my babies and my young children were showing me were really a gateway into spiritual enlightenment. And for years I thought, gosh, I'm going to write a book about spiritual enlightenment, as a mom, from the kitchen kind of thing. But it morphed and changed, and I knew it would be with someone. And so Darryl and I, when we came together, one of the things that I started doing was channeling a book. And I channeled it 3 years ago, and it was released last November, The Way to Peace. And it's a small book. It's really a guide to the map of understanding consciousness and the framework of the mind, and how manipulatable it is, and how without the connection to our instinctual nature and our feminine, how we can easily be caught up in stepping off our purpose. We can be overwhelmed with anxiety and depression, and kind of struggling through the reason as to why we're here. But by understanding the purpose of our reclaiming our feminine, which is what I've been able to step into, having a partner beside me and supporting me in that way, in such a deep way, it's really opened up. So my gifts really evolved, and my ability to channel my clairvoyance and claircognition, or all those clairs, but they're just so deep and rich now. The more Darryl stepped in over the years, I honed them and was a teacher and workshop facilitator. But in coming into partnership, his anchoring the divine masculine, I can go into such a state of the omnipresent state that now we're having prophecies, and I was able to without realizing it, prophesize the LA fires, COVID. That was easy. I mean, not easy, but I saw that coming for years, and different events that have affected humanity. But my own prophecy, my cancer prophecy, and how your question as to how that unfolded. So just as I was preparing to move out to live with Darryl, I moved across the country. I had a premonition that he was going to be nursing me through cancer. And because we were such an early in our relationship, I thought, oh, I don't have time for that. That's not what I want. That's not what my mind wants. But anyway, I tucked it away. And about 3 months before we were to get married, I knew I needed to go to the doctor. I was having some symptoms. And then a week after we got married and back from the wedding, I was diagnosed with uterine cancer. And so initially Spirit was, I did the medical intervention. So I had a full hysterectomy, and I met that, courageously. They told me the night before my diagnosis, it would be cancer, before, I went and got the confirmation, and that I would be okay, and just to trust them. So we had done a lot of spiritual work on my feminine, healing my feminine, the loss of the feminine. And that was, a big part of what we were bringing through as healers to my own health. And so, but still having to meet the cancer, because it had manifested beyond beyond that. So it had been over the course of many, many years of kind of rejecting that part of myself. And so 2 years into my recovery, 2 months into my recovery, Spirit arrives and says, it's going to come back in 4 months if you don't meet all of the lessons of cancer. And I was shocked, because I had worked really hard. And so anyway, so the night before the appointment, this was the download that we were given. And when I went to the appointment, the doctor, sure enough, said, oh, there's a lump right beside the original location. We need to send you for a CAT scan stat. So we went home having kind of some understanding of what we needed to do. We dove in, did everything that we could spiritually. We did all of our work. And over the course of 5 days, we just poured hours into understanding the collective pieces that I was carrying. This was the return of this cancer was primarily connected to some of the collective pieces of the wounding of the feminine. So we met all the asks of Spirit, and we worked very hard. And the night before my CAT scan, they came and they said, okay, you were going to remove the cancer through, Darryl has a process of using a Vogel crystal, and it'll be gone. And so we went for the CAT scan, came back clear 3 days later. 2 weeks after that, my doctor calls me on a Saturday, and he said, I just can't be with those results. I'm uncomfortable. This needs to be re-examined. And so we went for more tests, and it came back negative. So that is my story. And the last thing I would say is, the rigors of spiritual walking, the spiritual path, no one's exempt, even though we have these tools. They were tools that we sought out, tools that we developed even through our own application of some of the structures that we've both taken, in our past. And so as, we want to empower everyone in the sense we now too have a process that we've downloaded and we teach through workshop. But these are things that, we want to empower everyone to seek, even in small ways, to incorporate in their lives and their health journeys.
Yeah, so you said that you had a lot about the wounded divine feminine that you needed to heal. Can you give us some examples of what that is, or
Sure.
and how did you come to heal it, and how did you know this? I mean, you knew the cancer went away, but how do you know you were successful in that?
Sure. So the wounding of the feminine takes, many forms. I'll try and, summarize a few. But one of the things I carried was that the feminine is weaker. The feminine is less than, it's not respected, it's not equal to the masculine. And we see that programming through lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, especially in the collective, because of the unconscious collective that we're tapped into in religion. So we've seen that the feminines, we've been programmed that the feminine is not divine. The feminine is lesser, and God is a man. And so the understanding and the deprogramming that the masculine or the divine is masculine is fundamental to reaching our equality. And so what's happened over the course of many lives is when we incarnate as women, we seek power. We're trying to feel better about ourselves. And so I need power. What can I use for power? Oh, I have my sexual power. And so leaning into our sexual power has actually lessened our, respect to our soul, respect to our inner child, the respect to, even within women to women. So women have been turned against each other. So women are striving and competing, and we're not in community, and we're competing for the same partners. And so there's been a lot of fracturing of our relationship to one another. Would you like to add?
Yeah, no, I mean, this is definitely the thing that you see in terms of this competitiveness and the inner critic in women. It's very much leveraged against how they look. They go, oh, this is too big, or this is too small, or this isn't tight enough, or this or that. And men, you don't see that so much. And we never ask the question why, but it's like my value is predicated on my appearance. And of course, that's not universally true. You have an inherent value, and your uniqueness and who you are as a divine being is where you derive your value from, not from these things. But this is the world. The culture it's like a trance, and that's what's valued, and that's what's on TV, and that's what we're sold, and that's what's on all the magazines. And so you see all these eating disorders as a result, and you see all kinds of this. But the inner critic, when it's alive in people, because I don't look like this airbrushed, half-starved, silicone injected version of how I should be, then we attack ourselves and we beat ourselves up. And then instead of self-love, which is what a divine path would take us on, we have self-loathing. And so it wounds the feminine in that way. Men have their own, wounding things, but this is the thing. And then the clamoring for this power, but that's not true feminine power. True feminine power is in the intuition. It's in the nurturing and creativity and the healing ability and all of these things. But again, we've been enculturated into believing that that's not valuable, or it's weak, or it's not, and vulnerability is weak, and so on. And this whole, so the feminine has very much kind of gone over to the masculine, and we're all on the same treadmill and carrying briefcase and going to work and getting on that. Not to saying that women shouldn't have careers by any means, but it's like that's what's valued. And we've lost touch. And then we've lost touch with family. We've lost touch with the hearth and home. We've lost touch with, it's all about achievement and assertiveness and what we can get done. And that's what's valuable. And so everyone's on that bandwagon. And of course, then we lose polarity. And polarity is what creates attraction. When we are so driven into the masculine, women are driven into the masculine, that one of the things that it offsets is their hormonal balance. and sometimes infertility can result, or all kinds of hormonal problems. And so we're seeing that we need to embrace the feminine in ourselves, like women, well, both men and women. And then from that place, the intuitive solutions to our collective problems can reveal themselves. And that's going to be the ticket. And that's what's going to balance the masculine, which unchecked, out of balance, is what's kind of the rape and pillage of our planet. You know, it's just take, sort of achieve without any balance, and saying, you know what, we've got plenty. We don't need any more. Leave some prey for next year, if we're using a tribal kind of
philosophy,
right? But you can see it's the same thing with anything. But we live in a kind of this consumeristic, out of balance, what we achieve. So those are some of the things that we're seeing, and we want to give back, and because when we have that balance in ourselves, then that will be mirrored in our world. So that then becomes a big piece of where we need to go.
Yeah. So Jennifer, how did you know that you had absorbed some collective wounding of the divine feminine, and it wasn't just your individual experience, but it was a collective one?
Well, I guess through my way of talking to spirits. So spirit's always talking to me and showing me. So I channel a lot of messages, and then I'll say to Darryl, I think this is, and he muscle tests. And so it's the messaging that they would give us. So we would look at, sometimes we're working on individuals. So when we see our clients, we see clients during the day, and then in the morning and in the evening, we do 4 to 5 hours of collective healing every day.
Wow.
I know. I don't know if we've ever missed a day, and some days longer. Saturdays will be longer at it. Depends. Spirit says, okay, next this, now this. But
our hobby.
It's also been our preparation. See, I think we've only been together almost 5 years, and so we're kind of, in a way, we could have possibly been together sooner, but my children, anyway, it doesn't matter. But here we are now. So we're working to catch up on maybe some earlier, time that we could have been. However, so this collective work that we do is really, so we look at, in the grid, for instance, we look at the DNA, we look at, the codes in the sun, the codes in the elements. There's a lot of, dark, the interference of the dark. So the opposition for us to, see, if we want to take one more step back, spirit's like, okay, take one. Sorry, they're talking. So take one more step back, and that is our inherent power. The power of the Kundalini, right? The life force that lies within our root chakra. So for those that don't know, there's a life force that lies in the root chakra, and it's at the base. And so it rises, but it can't rise because it has things stacked on it. It has those limiting beliefs that Darryl was mentioning. It has, shame and blame and guilt and the shoulds and the shouldn'ts. And so in revealing all of these things, in our conscious mind, we bring them up into awareness from the subconscious. We're empowered to change. And so then the Kundalini, through that healing, can start to rise. And that life force is the brightness that we see people, they're so alive, they're so creative, they're so dynamic. But we're dimming, we're dull, and we're dimming out when we are on our phone and we're not in nature. So the collective work is, we've been trying to support people in the shadows. We've been doing it from a distance, in helping people get back to their instinctual nature, back to what's important. And so a lot of this is in the dormant DNA that is in all of us. So we've been called to spirit to, change some of those collective pieces. There's a lot of geometry that is unhealthy that's placed in the grid from non-local beings that want to siphon our energy. So that Kundalini doesn't rise, it goes out. And how does it get drawn out? Through distraction, through sexual distraction. So they're siphoning it through, because we're not using it for self, we're giving it away. So that, I don't know if that answers some of your questions, but that's how we come to it, is through my psychic channels and Darryl's psychic channels. And then we have a lot of tools that spirit guides us to use to make those changes.
Yeah, I feel like every time I visit a sacred site, not always, but it's compromised in some way, that it's not originally running the way it's supposed to. And
right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a big part of our jobs, and this our incarnation is to get that back in alignment.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of, in the book, The Way to Peace, that we delve into, or Jen delves into, a lot of the infiltration of the darkness. Like, we have this little perceptual range in our 3D kind of perception, you know, but outside, beyond the veil of 3D, there's all kinds of stuff there. And some of it's wanting to help us evolve, and some of it has an opposite agenda, and there's darkness there. And so just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not influencing us. But the way they influence us, maybe it's not so Hollywood and like Exorcist or something, but it's much more like playing with our mind and putting in programs in the dream state or different places. And that's why we have to get into our bodies and get connected to our feminine, our intuition, our instinctual nature, because then we can't be fooled, because we're aligned. We access the Akasha through our hearts, and then that's how we can access the truth. But when we're in the minds, we're highly programmable. I mean, just think of stage hypnotists, and they can turn people into toasters. You know, the mind is very programmable. So we need to start to remember that we are more than just our mind. That's one pillar of, you know, and then there's soul and all these other pillars of who we are that we need to reconnect with to be able to meet the world in a holistic way.
Yeah, and for Americans, we're stuck in the mind and the mental body a lot of the time. It's exhausting. You can feel it. And I go to other places that are heart centered, and it's like I breathe a sigh of relief. It's like,
It is tiring. It's very anxiety invoking. You know, people, what I would like to offer to that is it gives the mind too much responsibility. The mind is not meant to have all the power. So it's actually like, please don't give it to me. I don't like, there's a part of the mind that's like, you know, obviously protecting, and it has all this, you know, egoic kind of structures and wants control, but there is a sense of us that knows that that's too much control for one part of ours. So if we have 4 pillars, you know, our physical body, like our instinctual nature, our emotional body, our mental body, and our spiritual body, but only one is in charge, it's holding everything. So it's like saying to one of us out of 4, you know, oh, it's all on you. So there's a lot of anxiety and depression that's resulting from that.
Yes, for sure. I mean, I would say almost every client I see now has anxiety and or depression.
That's right.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's very common.
I think part of it is people are changing, and they're becoming more sensitive, whereas in the past they were not picking up on the nuances of energy, and now they are, and it's triggering their anxiety. They don't know what to do with that information. Like, you know, you get information, Jennifer, I get information, but we know what to do with it. We're having a two-way conversation, right?
Yes.
Because thankfully our gifts allow us to do that. But other people, you know, they may be completely new to this, and they don't know what to do. And
yeah, and then I think that's a very good point that you raise. And of course, that's what you need. You need information. You need something to bring what's in the unconscious into awareness where it can be worked with, because this is the cause of all of our problems, the anxiety and the depressions and all of our relationship issues and our physical problems that we get, no matter what they are. They have their seeds in this deep unconscious material. So the psychic abilities, or anything that can bring it into awareness, and then you need something to be able to do. Once you see what's there, what do you do with that, right? And so what came through, Jennifer, was a workshop. We had to work very, very hard to get basically the tools to be able to help empower people to be able to do their own inner work. Because then they're like, so a way to be able to access the unconscious material, and then a way to work with it and liberate it, heal it, and clean it out of their field. So that then is this workshop that we've developed that we're teaching in person, and then will be uploaded online this summer.
And we'll teach it. Yeah, we'll teach it this fall too, online. So yeah, people can access us that way. But yeah,
what's the workshop called?
Awaken Your Inner Wisdom. Yeah. So, and it's a chakra-based process that awakens the light body. So it's like we go through each chakra, and it's a very deep dive, all channeled material. So it's wonderful in that, Spirit says guided us to exactly what they wanted us to reveal in each chakra, and then bring it up to, into the light of awareness, and then a process, a balancing healing process. So
very deep, but very simple to do.
So your collective work that you do every day, and thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you.
Seriously,
yeah, it's nice to get a thank you. Yeah, you sort of
I mean,
thankless job, but we do it anyway.
what a blessing that you're giving all of us every day for 4 to 5 hours a day of your time.
Yeah.
What are you sensing in the collective, and are you sending just healing energy, or are you clearing? What are you doing?
Yeah, well, definitely clearing. We're working, I mean, every day is different. So, but we're looking at, if we were using the feminine thing, we might be saying, oh my gosh, here's something in the collective female pain body that we see. And so then we might go in there and start to change the energetic dynamics that are a part of it. Everything is held together by energetic dynamics.
Well, I'll give you one word. Like they're just saying, give the word. So like the word.
We're having a three-way. No, we're having, it's Jennifer and Darryl and spirit guides.
I know. Christ
actually always like that, actually.
Yeah, right.
And angels.
That's right. No, so think of the word slut, right? And that's such a and so they're giving me the word. So because I'm like, we need something tangible for people to understand. Think of in the past when we were, we're all about around the same age, right? That label on a female in high school was, ending. Devastating, right? That label has been with the feminine for hundreds of years, and so the feminine deceived the masculine. You think of Eve, being the temptress to Adam. So we will go in and sorry, just to take it back, but they wanted me to bring that word in just to see the depth that we are untethering the shame and that the feminine collective has carried. And so when we remove that, we're returning the feminine to the masculine. So men are at peace with their own masculine because they've lost that connection in themselves, right? So I don't know if you want to pick it up from there, but
no, I mean it's things of this nature, and whatever they're having us do. I mean, sometimes, like you say, the sacred sites, we might be working with them, and there's portals and things that we need to work with, or bringing codes in, and there's a permit. What do you go ahead?
Yeah, no, they're just like we've derailed trajectories in war. So we've gone in some of the Ukraine, Russian situations, we've gone in and derailed some of the intensity of the energy there. We've derailed some things actually with China. We've derailed, we've gone in and gone into some of the consciousness that in some of the people that are being affected. So you think of the darkness in self, right? That that draws darkness outside of. So if there's a lot of darkness in a leader, and then they're drawing that into them, it's manifesting in them taking maybe a step that they wouldn't normally take if they weren't being influenced. So we're removing the influences on people as well. So it does sometimes I'll say, we're working somewhere in South America or somewhere, in wherever we are, Venezuela, some of the issues that have been at the forefront of human rights. So we really do get into some of the political challenges that are happening at present.
And just remove the darkness that's influencing it,
and then step back.
Yeah, and you can literally see, I've seen just like a dark cloud hanging over certain locations, and it's just like this feedback loop.
That's right.
And once you clear it, once you send it love and send it to the light, that loop stops.
And then what's possible? So we're not interfering in that, we're not changing. We're just removing what shouldn't be interfering with the situation. So and everything is spirit driven. So it's not like we're putting our nose in where we shouldn't be.
Well, I feel like in this kind of work, Creator wants us to do this kind of thing, and that we have the green light, and because we are souls in a human body on this planet. We get to say what happens here, and if we want to change it, we have the power to change it.
Right. Yeah, as long as it's, divinely inspired, divinely gifted to us, and that's how we do everything, by what Spirit advises us to do, and they walk us through it very carefully. And I like what we have. We have a kind of a double check. Yeah. So it's like check. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm getting that. Yep, I'm getting that. So
yeah, when I do that kind of work, I ask, am I finished here? Is there more to do?
Right.
But
Right.
usually it's just a feeling that you're finished, or it's a relief.
Yes.
You
right.
feel a sense of relief or a shift or a change, and then you're finished for now.
Right.
So say someone's listening to this episode and they have cancer, or a loved one with cancer. How do they even begin to heal it spiritually or energetically?
Well, I think that if you're in a situation of that nature, then I mean, I'd have to say I recommend for them to get in touch with us and do sessions with us, and because we can reach very, very deep and do a lot of work and get to the root cause. In the mind body, there's a whole fancy name for it's called psychoneuroimmunology, where they do psychological profiles on people, and they can correspond. They go, oh, long repressed anger and resentment, that turns into cancer, or just like deep hurt can turn into heart disease. And the body is just an expression of mind. So we can go in there and try to find out, oh my God, when you were 6 or from this past life, this happened, and there was an abandonment or a betrayal that's energetically being anchored in your field. And then we can get in there and change the energetic dynamics so they're aligned with your natural order and harmony of this cell's original state. So that then becomes essentially what we're able to do. I mean, by all means, any kind of, people can ask for a dream, and that's another way of getting information. Journal your dream, and they'll get some information then, and some insights as to what is showing up in presenting itself. But in mind body medicine, we never really look at the symptoms as the problem. The symptoms is your body's way of screaming at you. Sometimes it gets that loud that something needs your awareness, something needs your attention, and we've been ignoring it. I think the symptoms start out very subtly, but we don't listen, and eventually it turns into something. And we're advocates of, like, Jennifer had an operation, the regular medical system, sometimes something's there, you got to circle the wagons, but you also want to deal at the level of cause. So then it's not coming back, or then it's not recreating itself. So
resolution.
Yeah. So that's basically, it's a piece of the pie that's not been addressed, essentially. There's physical reasons. A person may have smoked for 20 years and that's why they got cancer, but there's many reasons on mental, emotional, spiritual levels. It could be a karmic if it's spiritual. It could be limiting beliefs. It could be ancestral. There's, long repressed emotions. The emotions buried alive never die. They just turn sour and reveal. So you have to address things from all corners. And then now it's reasonable to have hope. And it's also really putting the healing back in the person's hands. If you take responsibility, you have the ability to respond. When you realize it was choices you made in your life, or unresolved things, or things you buried and repressed, that's now expressing itself as this illness, how can somebody outside you completely heal that? That person has to be intimately involved. There can be a massive support structure, but they need to have, I want to change. The other thing on that note is sometimes people have an attachment to the problem that they have. And that's why you have to be brutally honest with yourself. Sometimes we call it a treasured wound. There's a payoff for having a problem. I don't have to work. I get a disability check. I get more attention from my partner when I'm ill. So their subconscious is on board with, no, I don't want to actually get better. And they're actually hanging on. So once you can get into awareness and make shifts at that level of consciousness, then you can move forward.
Yeah, I think oftentimes patients listen to what their doctors tell them, and then they take that as the absolute truth. And that's a problem too.
Yeah, no, exactly. This is the one of the issues is then we've given too much of our power away to the mainstream medical model. We have to be intimately involved in our journey. We're advocates of them being part of your healing strategy. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what Spirit would like to say, just to jump in so we don't lose this thread, is there's a one of the collective pieces that we've been working on is reestablishing and affirming our inherent innocence. So part of the religious indoctrination that's been, on the planet for the last few thousand years is that we're born in sin, right? That we're constantly striving to cleanse ourselves from sin. And so the doctrination and the protocols that we're following will never get us free of sin, that we're sinners. So by returning, but what it does, see, the darkness has placed that in religion. And this may be a little bit hard for people to understand and swallow in a way, but that's what Spirit has guided us to share. When we return to our innocence, that lowers this natural defensiveness. So if you are told you're a bad person, there's going to be a protectiveness that arises within you. It's a natural defense and so what happens is people aren't able to be with their choices and their responsibilities. It's too hard for them to take responsibility for their health because they can't bear to be any more wrong. The inner critic is so loud on them, it's overwhelming. So they become defensive. And then that places them, that is very disempowering. They're not able to step into that place of responsibility. They're not able to be humble about maybe some of the choices that they've made. It's not possible. So some of the deep collective work that we've been doing is returning people to their natural state of innocence. We are all learning. It's not, good and bad. You're a good person. You're a bad person. You've gone to church. You went to reconciliation. It's like we're learning. We're all learning, and we're doing our best in each and every moment. And that's what we're striving for. We're just growing. And so when we step into that place of innocence, it has such a wonderful healing balm to the soul, because then the soul can be there. The soul is what animates our healing, right? Our soul is what the life force that we need to heal. But if our soul is too afraid to be down here because it's going to be punished or criticized, it can't be in the body.
Yeah, I remember I grew up Catholic, so I remember all the sin stuff, and God did this and will punish you. And as a sensitive child, that's very scary. And I thought that if I did something wrong, something bad would happen to my parents. So that was my greatest fear. Mm-hmm. And I remember, like, by the age of 14, I was like, this is bullshit. I was like, if God is like this, then I reject this God.
Exactly.
And I don't know what this God is, but I don't like him. He sounds nasty. I don't want to have anything to do. I said, then I don't know what's out there. And I just kind of floated for another 4 years saying, I don't know if there's a God or not. But when my father passed away at the age of 18, I felt his energy.
Yes.
Around me. And I thought, there's gotta be a God.
Yeah.
Because he's still here, just not in physical.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and this is the other thing that we've been conditioned to, is that it is someone outside of us, and it's male. Right. And of course, then there's a sense of separation. And in that separation, there's like, oh my God, I feel separate and small and disconnected. And now people are trying to be better than everyone else. And there's this striving and perfect. But the bottom line is, we're not separate from the divine. We're part of it. It's like we're all a facet in the divine diamond. And then so now when you criticize yourself, you're moving away from your own divine nature. So what you really want to do on a spiritual path is remove all the veils, the limiting beliefs and everything to who you are at the deepest level. And then that's what you speak to the field with. And that's what you attract back to you, because we're speaking to the field all the time. But if you're speaking to the field with a limiting belief, I'm a bad person, I deserve to suffer, it goes out like a frequency and finds the same frequency and draws that experience into your life.
Same.
It does that to mirror to us what we need to work on. But that's inherently changeable. We've just never been given the rules of the game. Once you've got the rules and tools, okay, then you can actually shift that, and then you start to look at the world out there as a reflection of your relationship with yourself. I mean, interesting, we're talking about the inner critic. The part of us that takes a hit from the inner critic is actually our inner child. It's like internal child abuse. And we're saying, oh, that child abuse shelter is terrible. Well, yes, but we have that same relationship with our own inner child. We're negating our needs. We're putting everyone else first. We're doing all these other, we're not taking enough rest. We're not meeting our needs. And then we expect other people to meet our needs. The other thing that happens with this self-loathing inner critic is we develop, from an illness standpoint, autoimmune diseases. Autoimmune is when the body attacks itself, just like our consciousness is attacking us. So we have to be in right relationship with who we are. And when we are gentle with ourselves, we can embody more of our soul energy. When we can do that, we can be on purpose. Life is richer and fuller and more rewarding.
I love it. So Jennifer and Darryl, can you share your website, again, the name of your book, and how people can contact you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So the book is called The Way to Peace, and it's by myself. And our website is thenatureofus.ca. So we live in Canada, so we are .ca, and you can find all the ways in which you can connect with us and work with us. And we're really excited to be online and traveling with our workshop, and we see clients, and we love working together. We've been working together for 3 years, I think you said too. So I'll correct them now.
I defer to her.
Yeah, I know. No, you can't argue with a psychic.
Keep them organized. But so
for your credit, time moves really fast. So I honestly don't even know what day it is sometimes.
I know, no. But so we have a YouTube channel, we have Instagram, so we do post some stuff there, so you can find us all over the place.
Well, thank you, Jennifer and Darryl, for taking the time to tell your stories and sharing your wisdom, and for being you on the planet now.
Thank you, Tina.
Thank you very much, Tina.